After the disaster that was our cruise on the Sun Princess, I wasn't sure I'd ever book Princess again. But 7 days on the Enchanted Princess through New England and Canada gave the brand a second chance, one that kept me guessing the whole way. From a penthouse suite with a balcony the size of my first apartment to a dinner show that felt like a sci-fi movie, this trip kept surprising me. I went in hoping for redemption, but what I found wasn't quite what I expected. Hey y'all, I'm Evan with Family at Sea, where we help make every cruise unforgettable. My most recent cruise was a little different for me. My aunt turns 80 this year, and she asked me to plan her a cruise to see New England and Canada during the fall. She'd always dreamed of sailing past lighthouses, golden leaves, and those tiny coastal towns that looked like they were made for postcards. It was her dream cruise, but I had some reservations. After my last Princess cruise on the Sun Princess, I wasn't exactly eager to jump back on board. That trip was chaos from start to finish, with long lines, broken features, and a layout so confusing, people on board literally called it the "you can't get there from here" ship. Still, I wanted to give Princess another chance to show why so many people stay loyal. So we booked the Enchanted Princess, a smaller, more classic ship that promised something calmer and more refined. 7 days through New England and Canada sounded like the perfect setting to see if Princess could finally deliver the refined experience their brand promises. And what we found was a cruise that surprised me in ways I didn't expect, and one that reminded me why some people still swear by Princess and why others might never go back. If you're ready, I am. Let's go. For a ship this refined, the pricing on the Enchanted Princess is surprisingly fair. On most 7-night sailings for 2 people, interior cabins typically start around $1,900 and can reach $3,000 depending on the season and demand. Ocean view rooms usually fall between $2,300 and $3,300, while balconies hover around $2,500 to $3,700. Mini suites come in closer to $3,500 to $4,500, and full suites start near $6,000 and climb higher depending on the suite category and popularity of the sailing. So yes, it's pricier than the budget cruise lines, but it's right in line with other premium cruise options. And considering the level of service, the calm atmosphere, and the overall polish of the experience, it feels like you're getting your money's worth, especially if you're after a more relaxed, grown-up kind of cruise. But pricing in the cruise world changes faster than the tide, and it's not always clear if you're getting a deal or just clicking the first limited time offer that pops up. And that's why I always book through Cruises It. Instead of waiting on hold with someone who's never actually cruised, you get a real travel expert who knows your trip, knows the cruise line you're on, and can fix problems before they ruin your vacation. They've saved us money, unlocked perks we didn't even know we qualified for, and kept us from ending up like Frank, who booked a lobster tour in Maine that turned out to be lunch at Red Lobster. Frank, buddy, next time maybe choose an excursion that doesn't come with cheddar biscuits. With their low price guarantee and people who actually care, Cruises It makes booking simpler, cheaper, and way less stressful. So click the link in the description below or call the number on the screen and tell them Evan from Family at Sea sent you. You'll be glad you did. Embarkation at the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal was surprisingly smooth, which honestly caught me off guard because this port has never exactly been known for that. Normally, it's long lines, confusing signage, and port staff who seem personally offended that you showed up. Still, check-in this time was painless. Security moved quickly, the lines actually flowed, and before we knew it, we were walking up the gangway and stepping on board the Enchanted Princess. And that's where things started to feel different. The atmosphere was instantly calmer. No blaring announcements, no crowds funneling through narrow hallways. It was just a quiet, steady rhythm that felt refined in a way the Sun Princess never quite achieved. Crew members were smiling and greeting guests and offering help before anyone even looked lost. It was the kind of understated hospitality the Princess built its reputation on, and honestly, I'd missed it. But as we started exploring, I realized this ship carries a bit of a split personality. One moment you're standing in the piazza, surrounded by marble floors, live music, and soft lighting, and things are elegant and timeless. And then you turn a corner and run into an awkward layout or a space that feels strangely disconnected from the ocean. By the time we reached our suite, I wasn't quite sure which version of Princess we'd booked. The confident, classic cruise line that built its name on service and serenity, or the one still trying to rediscover never what it wants to be. Either way, it was already clear this was going to be a very different kind of week. For this sailing, I stayed on one of their aft corner penthouse suites that are perched along the back of the ship with panoramic views that stretched from wake to open sea. There was a true sitting area with a sofa, armchair, and its own TV separated from the bedroom by a curtain which offered some privacy without closing the space off completely. Both rooms had their own sliding glass doors leading out to a wrap-around balcony that was easily the best I've ever had at sea. With loungers, chairs, and space to spare, it became my morning retreat for coffee and coastline views drifting by. The bed was genuinely comfortable with Princess's signature bedding and that perfect middle ground between firm and soft. Across from it sat a writing desk that doubled as a vanity, and that's also where the only outlets in the bedroom were. Surprisingly, there weren't any outlets by the bed, so charging your phones or watches overnight may take some extra planning. The lighting controls for the cabin were nearly perfect, but not quite. There were switches for the lights near the front entry and on both sides of the bed, but the reading lights had their own little quirk. Each could only be turned off from its own switch, so most nights ended with me half asleep, climbing across the bed to turn off the reading light the cabin steward had thoughtfully switched on during turndown. Storage was excellent with 2 large closets, deep drawers, and plenty of space for luggage. The bathroom struck a nice balance of practical and premium with a real soaking tub, a separate shower with steady water pressure, and a vanity big enough to spread out. This was a full suite and it did come with some perks, including concierge access, evening happy hours, complimentary laundry, and reserved dining. But compared to MSC's Yacht Club, Norwegian's Haven, or Celebrity's Retreat, or even the Sanctuary class on the Sphere class ships, the experience was definitely lacking. Still, waking up to the endless wake view every morning reminded me why I loved being at sea. For space, comfort, and serenity, this might be as close to perfect as Princess gets right now. The Enchanted Princess isn't trying to wow you with size or gimmicks. It wins you over quietly with elegance and calm. At first glance, it's exactly what you'd expect from Princess. Polished finishes, warm lighting, and that signature refined energy. But spend a little more time exploring and you start to see what makes the ship different. And what's missing. At the center of it all is the piazza, a 3-story atrium that serves as the ship's social heartbeat. It's where live music floats up from the stage below and where people gather for trivia, cocktails, and morning snacks. Up on the top decks, you'll find 2 main pools that sit beneath the big movies under the stars screen, surrounded by plenty of loungers and hot tubs. And one of those pools was closed for maintenance on our sailing, but the rest still had a great atmosphere. The adults-only retreat pool above it stayed quiet most of the week thanks to the chilly weather, but in the Caribbean, it's easy to see why it's a favorite. Above that is the Sanctuary, which is Princess's premium adults-only haven perched over the bow with plush loungers, attentive service, and complete peace. We spent 2 full days up there, staring out at the gorgeous ocean views and listening to the ocean below. On warmer cruises, guests practically sprint to the Sanctuary to reserve space as soon as they board, but on our itinerary, it was blissfully calm. The only drawback here was the reservation system itself, because you're not charged if you don't show up, which means some of the best loungers sat empty while guests who actually wanted to be there were turned away. It's a small frustration, but one that stands out on an otherwise beautifully managed ship. Inside, the ship leans into Princess's strengths with intimate bars and live entertainment over big spectacle. Crooners, which is the piano lounge, became a nightly favorite for many thanks to an entertainer channeling Billy Joel with humor and heart. The spot I found myself returning to throughout the week was the Crown Grill Bar. It wasn't the kind of lounge I usually seek out that's more quiet and a little off the beaten path where you can actually talk to somebody, but nothing on this ship really captured the same laid-back feel, and this was the closest thing I could find to it. Throughout the day, it had that comfortable, relaxed feel I love, but once the live music started in the evenings, the atmosphere completely transformed, and what had been a calm space for conversation quickly turned into a makeshift dance floor, which was fun for some people, just not the vibe I typically go for. But what surprised me most was how little this ship connects you to the ocean. There's no wraparound promenade, no indoor solarium pool, and no forward-facing observation lounge. For a line that's built its reputation on their "Come Back New" slogan, which celebrates the romance of being at sea, the lack of ocean views across the ship felt like a surprising miss. Still, what the Enchanted Princess lacks in sea views, it makes up for in flow and poise. The spaces work beautifully and the entire ship feels quietly confident, which was a graceful course correction after the chaos of the Sun Princess. By this point in the cruise, I'd seen enough to know that the Enchanted Princess was a beautiful ship, but that wasn't what I was testing. After everything that went wrong on the Sun Princess, this trip became a bit of an experiment. I wanted to see whether Princess could really deliver the kind of calm, polished experience they promise. Was the chaos I experienced on the Sun Princess a one-off, or an early glimpse at what Princess has become? So I started paying attention to the small things: how smoothly service ran, whether the crew seemed calm or stretched thin, and how the ship felt on a sea day, and whether it had that relaxed, unhurried flow that makes you forget what time it is, or that time even exists in that moment. At first, it felt promising. The energy was calmer, the service felt more deliberate, and even at full capacity, the ship didn't feel chaotic. But I wasn't ready to call it a comeback just yet. I wanted to see if that sense of balance held up through the rest of the week. Princess has always marketed itself as a step above the mainstream lines when it comes to dining. It's not fine dining, but it's refined dining. While the food on the Enchanted Princess was consistently good, it rarely crossed that line into great. It's the kind of experience where you don't go hungry, but you might not remember exactly what you ate a few days later. Because we were in a suite, we had access to reserved dining, which sounds more exclusive than it actually is. It's a private section of the Capri dining room with slightly faster service and one extra entree each night. Aside from that one item, the menu is the same as the main dining room, but the service from our servers, Adi and Ivana, was phenomenal. They were warm, professional, and remembered every detail. If the food doesn't make you feel special, their service absolutely will. As for quality, I'd call it solid. Better than Carnival, about even with Royal and Norwegian, but below Celebrity or Virgin Voyages. It's cruise dining done safely and consistently, but nothing special. The World Fresh Marketplace, which is their buffet, was my least favorite venue on board. Breakfast was fine, but lunch and dinner were repetitive of the same stations and flavors all week. And if you wanted a drink besides water or coffee and tea, good luck. It took 15 to 20 minutes every time I wanted a Coke Zero during lunches. Because they don't have self-service soda stations that a lot of other lines do, including their sister brand Carnival, it took 15 to 20 minutes every time I wanted a Coke Zero during lunch, which is ridiculous, but they just didn't have enough people working. Honestly, overall, the buffet, I'm not going to say it was bad, it was just uninspired. Gigi's Pizzeria was another miss. The service was fine there, but the pizza was easily the worst pizza I've ever had at sea, and specialty dining was a mixed bag. The Catch by Rudy was by far the best seafood I've ever had on any cruise. The atmosphere was elegant without being pretentious, and our server Faye struck the perfect balance of professional and friendly. But the Crown Grill Steakhouse, on the other hand, didn't live up to the hype. The food was average at best, and the prime rib I had in the reserved dining room was honestly better than the upcharged dry-aged ribeye I had there. The chef's table Lumiere had excellent food and service, but it fell flat on the atmosphere. Instead of a private setting overlooking the galley that you find on pretty much every other cruise line, it was just a table surrounded by curtains in the middle of the main dining room. And then there's the 360 experience, which is Princess's immersive dinner only available on the Enchanted and Discovery Princess. It's part meal and part cinematic journey with a 7-course menu synchronized to lights, music, scents, and storytelling on massive LED screens that completely surround you in 360 degrees as you follow the story of a traveler meeting local artisans across Europe, and every course connects to the destination you're visiting. It's worth every penny, not just for the food, but for the sense of wonder it creates. In the end, dining on the Enchanted Princess isn't about culinary innovation. It's about comfort done flawlessly. The service shines, the atmosphere feels refined, and the experience reminds you that familiarity, when done right, can still feel special. Entertainment on the Enchanted Princess isn't about spectacle or shock value. It's about keeping things classy, familiar, and polished. Where some cruise lines chase flash and noise, Princess leans into tradition. That's both its charm and its limit. Most evenings revolved around live music scattered across the ship, with string quartets in the piazza, solo performers in the lounges, and bands playing classic hits late into the night. There's something comforting about always hearing real music, not just a playlist. The talent was solid, and while it wasn't Vegas level, it fit the ship's personality perfectly. In the Princess Theater, the shows followed that same theme. They were beautifully produced, but predictable. There were strong singers, elaborate lighting, and choreography that aims to please, but not surprise. If you're used to Royal Caribbean's energy or Virgin's creativity, this will feel tame. But for many, that's exactly the appeal. Daytime activities leaned relaxed and refined with trivia, art auctions, and dance classes instead of deck parties or belly flop contests. It suited the calm pace of a New England and Canada itinerary. The Vista Lounge, which is the ship's nightclub, was rarely lively. When no event was scheduled, I never saw more than a dozen people there and never saw anybody dancing. If you're sailing with kids or teens, this won't be the most exciting ship, but the kids' clubs were surprisingly big and well run. But overall, the vibe is decidedly adult with quiet afternoons, scenic ports, and early nights. In the end, entertainment here mirrors the ship itself. Calm, polished, and quietly confident. It won't leave you buzzing, but it will leave you content. If there's one thing Princess does well, it's service. From the cabin stewards to the bartenders, the crew on the Enchanted Princess were friendly, attentive, and clearly proud of the work they do. After the frantic, overstretched vibe on the Sun Princess, this cruise was a welcome return to calm. My room steward Zaldi, who had been working on Princess for more than 30 years, greeted me by name every morning, and our servers remembered small details from earlier conversations. Even when the ship was busy, there was an ease to everything. No chaos and no confusion, just smooth professional hospitality that didn't have to try too hard. And the atmosphere mirrored that same energy. The guests skewed older, as you'd expect on a New England and Canada sailing, but the vibe was warm and welcoming. People lingered over coffee, shared quiet conversations on deck, and seemed content to just be in the moment. Even the medallion technology that was a headache and never seemed to work on the Sun Princess worked flawlessly here. I could order drinks anywhere, unlock my cabin hands-free, and track my travel companions without a single hiccup. It all added up to something missing from my last Princess cruise, a true sense of peace at sea. The Enchanted Princess felt like redemption, proof that Princess still knows how to deliver calm, refined cruising at its best. By the end of the week, I'd stopped thinking of the Enchanted Princess as a ship to explore and started seeing it as a rhythm to fall into. It's the kind of cruise where your approach matters and a few small choices can completely change your experience. If I sail on the Enchanted Princess again, there are a few things I will definitely do differently. First off, I'd skip the frustration I had trying to make dining reservations through the app before the cruise. I didn't realize that Princess has a dedicated phone line for exactly that, and one quick call and our group of 5 was sorted in 15 minutes after weeks of frustration trying to do it on the app. It's the kind of small detail nobody mentions until you've already lost an hour and your patience. Evenings were another lesson in expectations. The piazza bars, O'Malley's, and crooners are the heartbeat of the ship, and they're packed for a reason. The atmosphere is warm and the entertainment is great, but if you don't grab a seat early, you'll be standing with your drink for most of the night. Once the clock hits midnight, things quiet down quickly, as the only spots still open are the smoky casino bar or the nearly empty Vista Lounge. The main theater shows were fine, but the real magic was in the smaller moments, the live music drifting through the piazza, and the Billy Joel-style entertainer at Crooners turning a quiet bar into a sing-along. That's where the ship's personality truly came alive. And one final thing, know what kind of cruise this is. A fall sailing through New England draws an older crowd and a slower pace. Most passengers were lovely. They were friendly, relaxed, and just happy to be there. But it's not a ship built for adrenaline. There were moments I found myself stuck behind a slow-moving conga line of folks meandering across the deck with no possible path to get around them, and I just had to laugh. But once you stop chasing excitement and start leaning into the calm, everything clicks. The Enchanted Princess reminded me that calm can be its own kind of luxury. For travelers who want polished service, smooth operations, and a sense of calm that stretches from morning coffee to sunset cocktails, this ship delivers exactly what Princess promises. It's proof that the brand still knows how to create a traditional cruise experience that feels graceful instead of dated. But for anyone chasing energy, variety, or that feeling of connection to the sea, this probably isn't the ship for you with its quiet nightlife and limited ocean views. So at the start of this review, when I said this cruise surprised me, that's what I meant. It didn't just redeem Princess in my eyes, it clarified who they're really for. Some people will step off this ship feeling refreshed and cared for, and others will walk away wishing it had more life, more buzz, and more views. And both reactions are valid, because in the end, Princess isn't trying to please everyone. They're quietly doubling down on what they do best. peaceful, grown-up cruising that still believes elegance doesn't have to shout. And if you're curious how it all went so wrong on the Sun Princess, the cruise that made me question Salo and Princessa again in the first place, you'll want to check out my full review of that ship next. It breaks down exactly what happened on board, from the chaos to the confusion, why this cruise felt like redemption in all the best ways. So don't stop here, check out that video next, and let's make sure your next cruise feels like it was designed for you. If you're ready, I am. Let's go.